Hello, everyone, and welcome to another chapter in my Waking Up Post-Woke, my human story. And today we are discussing Sarah in her 20s. My God, what a beautiful, rambunctious, little confused sprite she was. And so please go grab your coffee. I have some espresso, some water, and I have some organic black grapes. Look at, look, how beautiful and big. So please go pause this video and go grab your things. We're gonna just be talking about Sarah in her 20s and what I went through. It's so good. Oh my God. Oh my God. Delightful. So my intention for this series is to show a little bit of my human story, to show you in 2023, I'm recording this in November of 2023, I'm showing you how easily manipulatable I was, how easily I was under the woke spells, and with everything that's happening in the current time and space. If I was a child during 2023, I would have easily been, coerced into thinking that something was very wrong with me. I would have had a penis right now. I would have absolutely transitioned my body. I would have effortlessly asked for special medical attention from my parents. So I am really showcasing all of my stories, what I have come from, what I have gone through, to be the divine feminine being that I am now. And as a mystic, so many mystics and light workers and, light warriors on this planet, we chose to actively go down, certain dark corridors, certain rabbit holes, if you will, to be able to come back and tell the tale and say, hey, you can go down there if you want, but this is what's down there. So Sarah in her 20s, and please, I already have an introductory video, Sarah in childhood, as well as Sarah in her adolescent years. So in my 20s, we can start with, my 21st, if we will. I'm in a relationship with my first ex-fiance. I am maybe engaged. No, I think I was over 21 by the time I got engaged. Yes, I was still with my first ex-fiance. We had started dating when I was 15 years old, and I think he was 19 at the time, 18, 19 at the time. I can't remember. It's in my adolescent video, the age of it. And I'm just I was not happy in that relationship. But I had definitely been raised to believe that, there's a man, he's going to give you paper and plastic, and he's going to buy you a house, you're going to feel better, everything's going to be fine, Sarah. But when that didn't happen instantly, I was like, okay, well, this man, he comes from money, he has on paper all of the boxes checked, but I was really miserable. Even in high school, I chose to go to semi-formals with other people. It was the foundation of what I thought to be more of a polyamorous type of a mentality, but truly I was just unhappy. I didn't want to be with this person, and I won't repeat so much of what I had said in my adolescent years, but I had to move out. I had to be living with this person, and I was in a financial dependency. We were in a very codependent, needing each other type of a relationship. So what do you do when you're in that space? You just continue down the road. You just obviously get engaged. You obviously buy a house together. You obviously do all of these things, because what will make it better? Legal contractual obligations, definitely so. So let's see. My 21st birthday fell on Easter Sunday that year. So Saturday night, I went out with my sister. We were in Lowell, Mass, at the brewery, I want to say, and a Dirty Shirley Temple was the first beverage that I ordered for my legal first drink. I don't drink alcohol anymore at all in my human life. It's been a few years, and it was an active choice, and I couldn't be more grateful for that choice that I made back then. And the next day, we went to church. My 20s, I was still working for my family's company at the time. So I had a desk job, a 9 to 5, and I really just thought that this title was what I needed, that, I had all the things. I had, a man that loved me and would buy me things if I needed. I had a job that would provide for me, and I was able to participate in ways that I thought were okay. I had the weekends off, and we can hang out with the neighbors and do fun things and go out drinking and go out partying. And I was absolutely miserable and very, very confused. And as a beautiful being, I thought that attention was all that I needed. And I would use different aspects of my beauty. I was aware of it. I thought it was just, oh, people like you, girl. People like you. You dance and you have fun. Any substance, I have the tolerance of an Irish dock worker. Not like my older sister, but definitely when it came to any substance, I was like, this is mine. 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 Crush them up. Take them. This is mine. I was constantly drunk or high or whatever it may be. So substances keep you confused. And I was also on birth control pills. I was confused all over the place. I was looking for any attention that I could get. Any attention, sexual attention, good, bad, or ugly attention. I was, openly discussing certain things with my boyfriend, and he was just as codependent with me and would let me go off and do whatever it is that I wanted. I called it experimenting. How did I justify it? I had said, because we got together so young, and he was the first person that I had been sexually intimate with, that I had had intercourse with. I was like, I don't know anything else, and I want to, get that out before we get married. It was very much like family members were like, oh, no, they'll be together forever. I'll never forget a friend of mine at the time when I was 15, and I said, oh, I started dating this person, and she just goes, without even dropping it, she goes, you will never break up. The two of you will never break up. And I never thought anything of it until 8 years later when it happened. So with my first ex-fiance, absolutely miserable, drinking all the time, smoking. Actually, no, I wasn't really a big smoker back then. I was a little bit weary of it. I would take pills and that was fine, and I would drink and that was fine, but I would be the one, this is how in desperate need of attention I was. I'd be like, oh no, I can only take shotguns. So I'd stand in the center of the smoking group and take shotguns off of everyone. I know, cute stuff. This is very, I am not ashamed of that girl. She had absolutely no idea what she was doing. She had no tools, and she did the best that she could with what she had. And at the time, so many people in my life just kind of watched me like a circus performance and never really, they were like, no, she's doing whatever she wants. She's good. She's in control of all these things. And at that time, I didn't go to college. I didn't go to a university. And that was something that to this day at 36, I'm still very it's a wince. But for student loan purposes and the indoctrination that's going on in those institutions, I'm very, very grateful for that reality. But back then, absolutely not. So I was able to host all the fun parties for, when people came back from college, because I had an apartment. I was living with someone, and everyone else was still living at home, even though they were, off at school and educating and things like that. But they looked like, Sarah, how's everything? Oh my God. What? This is so cool. But I was dying inside. So there was a time I was living with my ex. We had moved to a few different places, and it was one holiday time. I think it was around Thanksgiving time years ago, early 20s. I got a stomach flu. I got a really bad stomach flu. And At the time, like I would just, any sort of addiction, I was ingesting so much. So I'd make like a plate of tater tots and eat the whole thing. At the time, it didn't really, I wasn't exercising, I didn't have that language, I didn't have the gym, I didn't have any of those things. So I was just ingesting whatever I thought. Sorry, you can see me fidgeting with all of my rocks and stones. It's very, as I've said before, very triggering to be putting this out there. But if what I have gone through can help one person on this planet, then it's all for good. It's all for good. And so I, had this massive stomach flu, and I was like, everything was either coming up or down. And within that time period around the holidays, I think I like lost a bunch of weight with it. And I will never forget the first time that I pulled the trigger. I will never forget. It was just, I was still like feeling a little woozy, but nothing was projectiling, nothing was coming up. I had eaten a meal and I immediately was triggered in a way where I was like, oh, I thought that this was going to come up again. I thought that like as you can see with like my childhood tales and my adolescent tales, for my human avatar, having special medical attention was very specific. And it was like, when you're sick, you get special attention. And so I was noticing that this special attention was going to dissipate. So that night, I made myself throw up. And no one thought anything of it because I had been sick. So it was not wasn't out of the norm. And then I just kept doing it. And within maybe a month, the amount of compliments that I got, Sarah, you look great. You have lost so much weight. What is your secret? Oh my, you look incredible. And so it did not matter what was happening up here, what was happening in here, or what was happening in the bathroom. As long as you're skinny, girl, doesn't matter. It does not matter. Just keep doing what you're doing. And so with that being said, it ended up being an eating disorder where I was bulimic for the better part of 10 years. There are pictures of me that I've seen that I look so emaciated. I think I got down to like less than 115 pounds. I want to say like 112 was like my happy place. And when I was throwing everything up. Every single thing that I was ingesting, I was throwing up. Everything. And it's to the point of I would wake up first thing in the morning and pull up my shirt and look in the mirror and say like, okay, is it skinny? Is it skinny? And then the second you put something into your belly, it could be water and your belly extends because there's something in it. I would immediately start to try to throw it up. Immediately. And I was again with a man that came from money, that his family would go out to very fancy dinners on a regular basis. I have thrown up in the bathroom of fancy restaurants all over New England. And I became so good at it that it was silent. You had no idea that it was going on. I was so stealth, so good at it, that the only person who knew that I thought was my significant other, was my fiance at the time. And again, when the outer image is so perfect and beautiful, and he didn't care. I was the trophy and he did not care. We got home after fancy restaurants and I would go right to the bathroom and throw it up. He was aware. We didn't really talk about it that much. He was aware that everything was going on. And it was so toxic and violent. We were not taking care of ourselves. It was so, there was so much drugs, so much drinking, so much toxic behavior. But when we were out in public, it was like, oh, look at them, high school sweethearts. Everything's so cute, everything's so beautiful, and everything's great. So in the midst of all this misery, we were going from apartment to apartment, and it was time to buy a house. It was time to get married, and it was time to buy a house and to obviously put ourselves in a very intense legal, financial, contractual obligation. So we did. We bought a house. I think I was 22 at the time. And in every way, terrible investments, in every way. And the people in my life have said to me, family members that I'm working on my relationship with, have been like, you just seemed happy. We just wanted to help. We just wanted to invest in you. We just wanted to make sure that you knew how lovable you were, how happy we were, all those things. And I was in screaming, roaring pain. Needed mental health help. I needed help. I found out years later that 2 gal friends of mine once literally came to my house and tried to stage an intervention and was like, Sarah's not well. Sarah needs help. We got to get her out of here. And my ex-fiance at the time literally shut the door in their faces and was like, we're fine here. We don't need your help. We do not need your help. I'd eventually almost cut out one of those 2 friends. The first one was the one that had said, you'll never break up. And the second friend was one that when we got engaged, I called her. I was like, oh my God, we're engaged. And she goes, literally, without batting an eye. And I ended the friendship immediately after. She goes, this is the worst decision that you could be making. You should not be with this man. You should not be with this man. You're sick, in pain, uncomfortable. Please don't do this. And I eventually did thank her for that. It was one of those seeds that was planted that I didn't let gestate for a long time. So I'm engaged, I own a house with someone, I'm miserable, I'm, sleeping around, I am doing drugs. A friend of mine at the time had slipped and fell at a hotel somewhere. And hurt his foot. So that hotel had basically given him a box of painkillers. I shit you not. They gave you a box of painkillers and they go, for your silence. And so he would literally give me palms of painkillers, palms. And so my routine would be I'd go to work, 9 to 2, I want to say, come home at 2, make a meal, vomit it up, take pills, lay down on the couch for an hour or so, being blasted, absolutely blasted. Like I would take so many painkillers and then put on like Friends in the background and literally put like a probably one of these, I've had these for a very long time, over my eyes and just lay down on the couch, and it would be like having a full orgasm. It was just like nothing else mattered in the world. And I had dabbled at that time, and it's, again, the first word, the middle word, the last word I ever heard ever was more. You're not my friend. We bought this together. No, this is mine now. No. None of that. And so my family at the time, my youngest sister, my mother, were working at a restaurant. And I thought to myself, probably we were in, not like financial fear, but I was still in a very feminist space of like, no, I can work, I can do the things, and blah, 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 which to me is irrational now. My divine masculine man tends to all the things when that does happen, and that's beautiful, and I'll work because I want to, and I'll create things because I want to, but I would never take away, his safety blanket and security and the capacity to take care of me. So I was getting a second job. So I got a job as a hostess and fell in love with again, I have a very addictive personality, and waitering is like gambling for a living. It's also being of service, and I've found incredible enlightenment with it now, with where I work. And so I started that job and met someone who worked there, met a man that worked there that was extremely gregarious, extremely charismatic. He was a bisexual man, and just like as in theater, as dun 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 as can be. And yeah, we fell in love it was a whirlwind. It ended up being to the point of I ended the relationship with my first ex-fiance, and because we owned the house together, we'd been sleeping in separate beds, or like I was on the couch or he was on the couch, for about 6 months before I was able to move out. And there was a lot of shame surrounding it. He did not express that to his family at all, so they thought it was like one day she's here, one day she's gone. He didn't express to them what had actually been happening, and being honest about it. We were both really just doing what we were told and being on the merry-go-round and just continuing to do the patterns that were in our family line. Like, my own birth parents were high school sweethearts. Like, it was just like I would have my ex's mother show up in the middle of the afternoon with like wedding planning books and all these things. She knew how miserable I was. She herself had been in a mental health facility for being a hockey mom. So she'd be like, here you go, Sarah. Here you go. Here you go. And it's hard to watch sometimes when, the people do those things. So eventually, the man that I had met helped me move out of my home, and we weren't officially together just yet, and I had moved back home with my mother and had stayed there for about a year while I sold my portion of the house back to my ex. Started working full-time in the restaurant industry, got to like a pack a day, Marlboro Red 100s, cigarette addiction, throwing everything up, absolutely miserable, and started to date someone who was bisexual. And the foundation, and I've mentioned him before, and in many different ways, he ended up being the verbal abusing narcissist that we've had, a soulmate over and over, through and through, but taught me so much. That's definitely one of the reasons that I highlight that soulmates, you have many soulmates in this world, and not all of them are good. I really don't believe in the terms like twin flames and things like that, because yes, everyone has a pair, everyone has a being that they can spend their life with and that they can divinely light up the grid and light up this world. I do not in any way discredit that, but it can be a very intense feeling of I fucked up when you don't meet them at the end of every single day. So we must always surrender and release attachment to when or if any of those beings come into your life, and let them do what they need to do. Like the man that I spend my days with, he is off training dragons. He is off fighting battles and wars for his family, team, and flock. And I am not going to rush him or make him step outside of when that day comes. I'm waiting. Yeah, I'm not going to step out of my femininity ever again. Absolutely not. So dating a bisexual man, and his foundation for this was, I'm bisexual, so I am with you, but to date me, you have to accept that I will always have a male partner of some kind, or I will be open to be able to date a male partner. So to date me, you have to accept the ambiguous him that will eventually be here, and that I will always date outside of the relationship. I was like, absolutely, kid, do whatever you want. I was just so desperate to have someone there. I did not care. I didn't care. Because to look at my shame and to look at myself and to look at the role that I had played in this, was not ready for any of that. Absolutely not. No, I was still into the spell. I was still just trying my ever-loving best, making decisions out of financial fear, having absolutely no idea what I was doing in this world, and feeling like an absolute failure. But when you're in that space, it's like, who cares? Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. Say, yeah, I fucked up. And now I'm taking the time to really look at myself and work on myself. But it was way too much for me at that time. So ended up moving in with that man. Was completely okay with him dating men, was completely okay with that. And the more the more I kind of was stepping into the queer community and the queer space, I was like, maybe I'm queer. I'm in a queer relationship, so maybe let me try on that label. And it's, you go from being like an ally to kind of, especially with the lens of mental health and not having anybody running the ship. I was in my adolescent, my inner child was in roaring pain, screaming in the back of the freaking closet, like no one was running the ship. So with all of those lenses, and me kind of recognize, also with this man being verbally abusive and kind of nitpicky and very, very crass towards me in a way that I was very comfortable with, because that to me was love. That's all I knew of love. So I was like, obviously this is healthy. This is obviously healthy because you're making fun of me. I'm the punching bag. I'm the if you know the show Family Guy, the Meg of the group. I was always the one that, regardless of what was going on, that I was the bum-bum-ch for him. And I just thought that was normal. So the more we go down the road and he's dating outside of our relationship and I'm, a part of this queer conversation, and it's kind of saturating into me with the lens of mental health, with the lens of needing special attention, not really understanding why or what it was. I needed healthy attention. But when your adolescent is running the ship, you will get attention regardless if it's good, bad, or ugly. You are getting attention. Doesn't matter. When there's bulimia, there's drinking, there's drugs, there's smoking, and now I'm also ingesting more cannabis flower than I can ever possibly tell you. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I was baked all the time. And it was to the point of when I first started smoking, I would lose all verbal communication skills and I would just go into my room and, put on Disney movies and just eat food. I almost burned my mother's house down once because I had made soup for myself and I left it on simmer. I left the flame on and went and ate the soup and then fell asleep. And it had eventually, someone else was blamed for it. It was so bad. I literally almost killed us all. So bad. And so, where was I? Oh, so I'm in this relationship with a queer person, wearing labels that are queer, being a part of that queer community, and having little bits of needing special attention. So I was like, okay, I want to have an out of relationship experience. If you are allowed to do this, and this is where a lot of the feminism comes in, where it's like, I can be a man, I can do what a man does. No, you can't. You absolutely cannot. We are not equals. We have very, very specific different makeups. You can't. But with that, with all of those lenses, it's like, I would like to have a relationship. I would like to try it on. I would like to have a female relationship. And I had a dear friend at the time that was friends with my, now we're on second ex-fiance. And the three of us had been dear friends. The two of them were very attracted to each other. And I think at a certain point, they should, I don't want to should them, but should have just dated and I should have just left the situation. But no one knew what to do at the time. And when it comes to polyamory, it can be so we're all in this together. Oh yeah, all of our toxic patterns and codependency issues and parental issues, we're all in this together. I just have to highlight and time out and say that there are very many healthy polyamorous relationships, many healthy ones. Some of the healthiest times in my life have been in polyamorous relationships, but the fact that one of the people that I was with was a narcissistic, verbally abusing being, I just needed to leave that situation and heal. I was not meant to stay in it. So, am I at my 30s yet? No. Not yet. We're going to finish into the end of the 20s. Actually, I go into my 30s in the poly, so I'll continue. So I'm living with my first ex-fiance and I wanted to have a relationship with a woman. The person, we had so many chit-chats, so many chit-chats. And so there was one night that my ex had a date with a man and I had my date with my female friend. And it ended up being a really beautiful experience. An absolutely beautiful experience. And at the time I was like, wow, maybe I'm queer. This might be, I might be bisexual. I was very Like I felt safe and supported and loved. It was a wonderful experience. And I guess what had happened is that my ex-fiance's date did not go very well. And so he came home after not having any, sexual experience. It was a bad date. And I'm literally in bliss. And so he comes home and I'm just like, oh my God, it was lovely and it was beautiful and it was just wonderful and I'm so excited. And my ex's first response, the first thing that he said to me was, you are now tainted. You are now tainted and filthy, and I cannot view you the same way again. You were my angel, and now you are a whore. The first response. And I was very like, I'm sorry, I thought we were doing the same thing, and I thought that I was allowed to do what, like, are we in crazy town right now? What's going on? It ended up being a violent, like, not he was never physically, like, he had pushed me before and threw things at me, but I was never punched. I was never hit, like, in any capacity. I just have to say that it was never like that. So there was, the yelling one night was so bad. This is just, and I've mentioned this before, I'll never forget it. The yelling one night was so bad, and it was after the first time that I'd ever modeled. One night we were yelling, or he was yelling at me. It was so bad. So the next day he came home, he had gone to work or got coffee, or I'm not really sure. He's like, Sarah, I just bumped into the next door neighbor. You'll never guess what he said. And I was like, oh God. He goes, so remember our like little disagreement last night? I'm like, yeah. He goes, so the neighbor, just based on the sounds that we were making alone, the neighbor, he's like, he thought that I killed you, chopped you up into 1,000 pieces, and then burned your body in the bathtub with battery acid. Isn't that hysterical? Yeah, it was hysterical. So in this relationship, and after a long time, it was not possible. The relationship with that woman was sabotaged. We had to put up what was deemed an invisible baby gate and just be friends, because the verbal abuse for both of us and the discomfort that we had felt because of my ex was just overbearing and too much, and just too much. So that's all I have to say about that. And so thank you for being here. I'm really grateful for you all. Again, all I wanted was love and healthy understanding and a place to heal. That's all I needed, truly. That's all I needed, was someone to say, hey, Sarah, you're in pain, and like parental care, anything. But when you're in financial fear, you make really fucked up decisions. Really fucked up decisions. Like, I really feel my heart goes out to any person with an OF that's making bank, because the shame that comes, the roaring pain that comes when you make very, very uncomfortable sexual decisions, any decision out of financial fear. Like, I stayed with people that broke me inside because I felt that I had nowhere to go, and that I was afraid of being homeless, and I was afraid to in any way ask for help from my parents, my family members. I was terrified. And under this like odd feminist, I gotta do it on my own spell, thinking that the family unit was what fucked me up, when that's all I needed was parental love. That's all I needed. That's it. That's it. So, and I've referenced the polyamorous relationship that I was in, that I'm about to start talking about in my Relationships Are Drastically Changing video that is for free on my YouTube. Please go check that out. There are so many beautiful things that come from polyamory, and this relationship was one of the healthiest that I've ever been in, save the fact that my primary partner, my fiance at the time, was as verbally abusive as I could possibly say. So that was the only really common denominator for why that relationship, but the healthiest way to be, it felt like a family unit. It really did. It really did. But again, displaced family units, when you start to see that you're looking for parental love in your partners, you cannot displace the work that you have to do. You can't displace the fact that you have to love your inner child in the way that your actual childhood self was not loved. Because that feeling never goes away. That inner child can run the avatar. The adolescent can run the avatar and fuck your entire life up. Yeah. Actually, I'm just going to go into, I'm going to kind of continue into my 30s. I thought I was going to do 20s and 30s, but I'm going to end it right at COVID time. So that's what we're going to continue on to. So I am, 28, 29, and I have a great job. I'm managing a natural food market. I was like on call 24/7, like literally like had the title that I needed, that I thought that I needed. So I finally got a therapist, and the therapist was integral, yes, but at the same time, I didn't need a job. It was, okay, so you're bulimic, you're in a wildly verbally abusive relationship, and you're waitering. The only concern that I have is getting you a managerial title so that you can, like, I get now what was happening, but really, like, I needed to be removed from the situation. I needed to be, like, just, should have just moved into a storage unit, honey. Honest to goodness. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. But this is my tale, so I'm going to tell it. Where was I? So, managing natural food market at the time, running an entire, was right underneath the owners. I was a customer service manager, floor manager, front end manager, sometimes the cafe manager, wrote the policies and procedures, the whole thing. Great title, great job, great everything. It was not sober, but a drug and alcohol-free environment, meaning that whatever you did outside of work, you just didn't talk about because it was meant to be inclusive. It was meant to be, if people choose actively not to drink, they would never be omitted from the conversation. So again, that's part of the woke type of a thing, because there was a very conservative man that worked there that they would mock on a regular basis. And it was very inappropriate. Looking back now, being a very conservative, divine feminine woman, it was really messed up. But that's kind of what that community is like. That's so much of what the woke community is like. And that's so much of what the queer community, when I was eventually really pushed out of, I'm not queer, so it's I get it. I thought I was, but I wasn't. I just had some mental health issues and some daddy issues and some mommy issues. So that's where what is happening is taking away from the actual gay and lesbian and trans man and trans woman community. Those are real people with it's what is going on is about mental health and about needing attention and about needing actual applicable tools to be able to navigate confusion and thoughts that are not yours. Because you're worthy of being in a community, a female and a male community. You're worthy of being, if you have XX chromosomes, if you have XY chromosomes, you're worthy of being in one of those buckets. You are. Yeah. Trying to milk a bull. So, very, very high powered, miserable at home, bulimic, confused, high all the time. And we met a couple. It was on one of my partners started working at the Natural Food Market. We met them and went to a Halloween party and ended up all coming together. And the only reason that it was okie dokie for my ex-fiance was because he was getting satisfied in the way that was okay for him. So I was able to participate and have it not be a screaming, roaring match because he had 3 people. You see what I mean? If I myself had gone outside of the relationship for those, I would have been completely like ripped to shreds. If he had 3 people, that was so okay. So, and this is where you get really crystallized into the feminist mindset, is because when you've been burned, it's not, I can do it on my own. It's, I have to do it on my own. So you start to get into this hardened space and you harden your heart. That's where you get stuck in that feminist space, because softness and divine men and divine female, it all makes sense. It's all beautiful and it's all wonderful. So we all got together. So really, we were together for about a year, where I had my fiance as my primary partner, and then I had a boyfriend and girlfriend. My fiance had me as his primary partner, and he had a boyfriend and girlfriend. And then the other couple, they eventually got engaged together, fiance, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, boyfriend, girlfriend. And we were exclusive together, the 4 of us. And it caused waves. I was not able to talk about this in any way in my general life. We again worked together, and I was overseeing so many things. So it was technically his boss's boss, and it was wildly inappropriate at the time, in every possible capacity. None of the decisions no one was running the ship. I was literally in screaming, roaring pain at all times and just navigating. Looking back, every single thing that I've gone through is to help you, to share with you. So we eventually all decided to move in together. We were getting an apartment, and the day we were close to the signing, and we woke up one day. I was getting ready for work, and my ex was using my car, and I was walking about 1.5 miles to work every day. It was really a mess, an absolute mess. Those incredibly effeminate, emasculated men, and he had his own mother-father issues. The poor man, I really hope that he received the help that he needs. And so that we woke up one day, and he just said, "Sarah, I've decided we're not going to sign the lease. This isn't for us anymore. Yeah, we're going to stay. I'm going to keep you." And something inside of me just and I went to work that day, and I told my team, I said, my life is about to fall apart. I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I don't know what's about to happen, but I just literally showed up and set the team up for success. Called my other partners and was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And so I had my girlfriend on the phone, and I had my boyfriend physically there with me, and my fiance came home, and I told him that we were ending the relationship. And he got into the hysterical space. He was yelling, he was crying, he, said all of these different things. He would say things like, "I'm going to kill myself, this is all your fault, I'm never letting you go," all of this stuff. And so I couldn't participate in it anymore. He had convinced me that I wouldn't even go on walks by myself. He's like, "I need to be there to protect you. You will not know what to do. I need to be there to protect you." Do you see how you cannot take care of yourself? You need me. You need me. There's one moment that this was years prior, when it was just him and I, but my guides are showing the image to me, so I want to just what narcissism looks like. just what narcissism looks like. So we'd gotten dressed up to go out to a fancy dinner because he was, like apologizing for one of the fights. And I had dolled myself up. He looked great in a suit. And we were walking down the stairs of our apartment building to go to the car. And our next door neighbor, whom was very aware that he screamed at me on a regular basis, very aware that I was being verbally abused on a regular basis. We had to write letters to everyone reminding them, like, we are not on intravenous drugs. We are not, like, please don't call the cops. We are tending to this. And so we are walking down the stairs, and she's coming up, and she looks at me. She looks in my eyes. She goes, wow, you look so beautiful. And my ex just goes, oh my God, thank you. It's all her though, isn't it? Thank you. It's all her. That's a narcissist. It feels really good to share. So thank you for being here with me. So that was years prior. So we're in the breakup. Went on for hours. He was screaming, crying all over the place, and he eventually walked outside. And this was a moment that I'll never forget, because it was so hard for me as an empathetic person to hear someone say, I'm going to kill myself because of you. And that was really, really, I was like, I have to leave you here. And so he's outside, and he's saying all these things, and I just go, that's not my responsibility anymore. I'm sorry. Like, it's like, I can't do this. I can't. He's like, well, this is going to be your fault. In that moment, a fully lit up fire truck and ambulance goes by slowly and sits right there. And the guys look over at me and they go, hey, Sarah, do you need help? I'll never forget this. They look at him. So everyone had known. It was one of those moments where it's like, when people see you in your shame. And I just was not ashamed. I just said, thank you. I'm okay. I got this. And he saw, and he knew. So then he grabbed some things and packed a little bag and left for the night. And a dear friend from many lifetimes ago had once said to me, when you jump, the net appears. And so within 24 hours, a coworker of mine had said, hey, Sarah, I just moved and I have some time still left on my lease. So why don't you go stay there for as long as you need until the new apartment comes. As the three of us moved into the apartment, and the whole thing, fell apart and dissipated and things like that. And like I said in my, relationships are drastically changing video, and as I've mentioned before, I ended things with my fiance and stayed with the three of them. The woman that I was dating, my girlfriend, stayed with my ex-fiance. We eventually swapped partners, basically, where I ended up with my boyfriend and my ex-fiance ended up with my girlfriend, and then we separated as couples. And my ex-boyfriend and I traveled the world together. We lived in Melbourne, Australia together for about a year, and his alcoholism eventually took over, and my codependency, and I gave him everything. I drained credit cards. He eventually lied to his family to get them to buy him a ticket home. I really hope he's alive and well. I really wish him health, and I'm grateful for the experiences. He gave me the world. He showed me that travel was a part of me, and introduced me to some incredible people. So I'm forever grateful for that man. I really hope he's alive, and I wish him well. So traveled the world, came back home, tried to move to Portland. So I came home crashing and burning from Australia after this relationship. I'm hopping all over the place, I'm sorry. Tried to move to Portland to get a job with the same company that I was working for. My aunt, bless her, she passed away within a week of me being there, and I had no idea why I was out there. Literally, I had a cafe job in Australia, and coming back to the United States to cross the country to go get another cafe job, I will never forget. So and this company didn't want me. Did not want me at all. I was a hot motherfucking mess at the time. And so I'll never forget, I move out to Portland. I'm staying with a random stranger that I don't know. I show up for the interview for a cafe job making less than $20 an hour. And the Aussie chick sits down and she just goes, "Why are you here?" And I'll never, and in the moment I was like, yeah, I'm looking for a job. I want to go back to Australia and blah, 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 blah. No money, no resources, absolutely nothing. No one was running the ship. And so finally moved back home and just was on the couch, was done, was so done, so done. When you move back to the States after traveling abroad, you recognize that they put sugar in everything. And I was eating like it was my job. I was placating. I was not, for some reason, I wasn't smoking cannabis at the time, but I was drinking, thinking that that was healthier for me. So I would literally, it'd be 12:01 and I would be making a vodka. Oh, vodka rocks, nothing else. Yeah, absolutely nothing else. No job, no car, no money, bank accounts emptied, credit cards overdone, and was just done. I was just done, absolutely done. Ended up, a dear friend helped me get a job at a cafe that I had worked at before I had left for Melbourne. I've, had this managerial skill sets, and I still do, it's why it can be helpful. All these skill sets, come to play. But I didn't have a car at the time. So for me to drive to town I'd be Ubering, I'd be taking trains. It was from door to door, probably a no traffic, I'd say 20-minute drive, but it would take me an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours to get there. There were days that I lost money by working, that I had to spend more money on transportation getting to work than I actually made. I lost money by working. But you get shrink, you get free food, and you're socializing, and you are just doing something, making connections. It didn't matter. So I had, put on a bunch of weight. I think I was about at 150 pounds at the time, and I started to regress back into, I was like, I'll just pull the trigger and I'll just, purge it out again. And I was older now, I was 31, I want to say. And my body didn't do that. The weight didn't fall off. Didn't matter if I was bulimic, didn't matter if anything. I was just soft. And so my older sister, she's a very, very athletic being. She's an ultra marathon runner. And when I was gone, there was a brand new gym that had been built in the time that I had been traveling. So she goes, "Sarah, I can get you a friends and family discount under my name, and you can come to this gym." And so I would go there first thing in the morning. I'd borrow my mom's car and go to the gym and then drive back before she had to go to work. And I would swim laps for hours. I would do yoga for hours. I'm not kidding. I would swim laps for, I think the longest was 2 hours. I just got up at 1 hour and just peed and then just swam and exercised and exercised and exercised and ellipticaled and did all of these things and just put it into my exercise program, put it into my body. And this There's so much beauty in physical fitness and being healthy physically. It changes your body, it changes your mind space, it helps with mental health, it helps with the whole thing. But they got me hook, line, and sinker. Hook, line, and sinker. They're like, oh, you're here every day. You know, if you work here, you can have a free membership. Yeah, you want to work here. And so I'll never forget, there was an assistant job that had opened up. I was on the elliptical machine at the time, and I was doing group fit. So my personal trainer at the time was like, hey, you know, go talk to him, go talk to the boss. We were texting. So I hopped off the elliptical machine, had an incredible conversation with this man. Like, to this day, some of the phrasings and some of the things like that he taught me, I still integrate. And like when you're discussing Simon Sinek in an interview, you know you're in the right spot, for me personally. And so I got a job, and it was an assistant job. I'm making like 12 something, 13, 14 maybe tops an hour. I don't even remember. And I was very like, this is it. During this time, little blips of what you do when you're unconscious kind of makes sense. I went through my Reiki certification at the time. I knew that I was a very, very special being, and there was a portion of me that was so like, do this. You need to legally be able to charge for your energy work. And so I'm beyond grateful for that teacher, that experience. Went through to Reiki 2 certifications. Now my energy work is very expansive and very open. And so I don't utilize, like, Reiki is the foundation of it, but I let my guides and I open up to my divine beings, and it's way more powerful. It's way more than just that. But that's an accessible term. So just an aside, during that time, you make decisions, and sometimes looking back, you're like, wow, no matter how unconscious I was and how cuckoo pants I really was, I did some things that were actually gold nuggets. So I'm very, very grateful for myself for the decisions that I made there. Very, very toxic friendships. The personal trainer that I was friends with at the time, like, eventually, like, I had to end the friendship and keep it blocked and stuff like that. That person, like, got the same tattoo as me on my chest piece, and it was a very scary moment for me, where I was getting used to a level of knownness. And, you know, what is it? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. It can be very scary. So I just have to highlight that. It can be very, very scary and intense when you really don't know what's going on. The person, like, named her cat after me. It was a big deal. But that's just a little aside. There's like many lifetimes in here. Many lifetimes. So where was I? Now I'm working at this fitness facility, and I'm an assistant there. I'm really just drinking the purple juice, and there was a corporate job that was available for me running the physical therapy chiropractic office underneath the umbrella of the gym facility. And I was like, that's definitely for me. I was not making enough money to do anything at the time. Like, absolutely not. I was making, like, my paycheck would be a few $100s bi-weekly. I could not afford what I was, like, in any way. I had to, you know, moonlight waitressing again. I would have friends that come pick me up, let me stay with them. Like, it took a village to really try to help prop Sarah up as she was going through this entire breakdown. And so it was October 2019 that I eventually got my, you know, the most high power job that I had ever had. And I had moved into my apartment about, I want to say, like, August of 2019. I got a roommate, and I had not spent an entire day there. I was working every single day, 70 plus hours a week. I was just like, that's what mattered to me. That's what mattered to me. I had been burned so many times in relationships. I was hardening. I was not open. I was not in any way softening into my femininity. All I was doing was saying, I just need a title. I just need to work. I can do this on my own. I can do whatever a man does. You think whatever you can do, I can do better. And I'm smarter, and all these different things, and blah, 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 blah. I was like coming on to people. I was like asserting myself. I was asking people out. I was just sliding into DMs. I was so wrong. Like, dating men that were so disrespectful to me, So disrespectful. I was dating a man once, so we took a trip out to San Francisco, and as we're walking around the streets of San Francisco, he's like, people think that you're a prostitute with me. Isn't that funny? People think that you're a paid escort. Isn't that funny? Yeah, that was my self-worth. That was my self-worth. Where was I? So the big conjunction in January of 2020 that astrologically started the pandemic and all the different things that happened, and it was Saturn and Pluto conjunct in the sign of Capricorn. I want to say at 20 degrees. My natal moon is at 21 degrees of Capricorn. And so the day of that conjunction, the man that I was with ended the relationship with me. And I was like in my office, the end of my workday. He came into my office and it was like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. We weren't even dating. He wouldn't even be my boyfriend. Literally. It was just like playing me as a fool. He's like, look at what we built. Wasn't that fun? And I remember I called my sister. I was driving home and I literally was like, it feels like I'm dying right now. It feels like I'm physically dying. And something snapped and broke inside of me that day. It was very, very, very powerful. So I have a high-powered job. We're going into, my journal of March 8th, 2020 was, Sarah, sugar's not a food group. You should probably be a little bit more cognizant about what you're eating as the world's shutting down. Like, I had no understanding of what was going on. I was not prepared in any capacity. So, what was it, March 16th, 2020? So I started my job in October 2019. I was meant to have an assistant. I was doing the job of like 4 or 5 people. I had to plan my pee breaks about an hour in advance. I'd learned sign language, so I was on the phone and then talking to someone. I could communicate with the doctors about like, hey, I'm busy, can't talk right now. My assistant was meant to be onboarded that day. My higher ups were in Minnesota, I want to say. They're in the Midwest, so they weren't aware that things were shutting down in the way that they were. So she's like, are you excited? Your assistant's starting today. You're not going to be having to do as much overtime as you're doing. And I was like, girl, the world's shutting down. I'm going home and not coming back. Like, what's going on? So I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for COVID. I'm very grateful for all of the experience that came from that. And I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna save my COVID time experience for the next video. I didn't expect to go over an hour here, so thank you for joining me for this one. It feels like I've lived thousands of lives, even in this one body, and I have. And in corporate, and when I was training and working my buttocks off, I would always say, I like to be efficient in my processes. And my awakening was no different. Whereas the education that I needed, I followed the guidance that I didn't recognize were my guides and higher self, telling me, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Also, when I was living in Australia, I had one of the most transcendent experiences that I've ever had. Or my first transcendent experience, pardon me. And that is listed on my YouTube channel, like all the way back in 2020. So it's like one of the very first videos that I ever did. It's called My First Transcendent Experience. If you're interested in that, I wrote out what happened and how I met my guides, and the view that I have tattooed on my body now. It was the first time that I ever saw that. So if you're interested in that, because you do get blips of spiritual awakenings throughout your unconsciousness. So dreams can pop off. Certain things happen in ways that when you do finally have the explosion of your awakening, you're like, oh, I do have some tools. I have whittled tools. It just didn't happen in the way that I thought it was going to happen. Is there anything else? They're telling me to keep going. All right, I'm going to keep going then. So when COVID happened and the lockdown started to happen and like the 2 weeks to flatten the curve type thing, I, brought my iPad. I thought I was going to be working every day. I thought I was going to be having all these experiences, but running a physical therapy chiropractic office, when you can't really do physical therapy or chiropractic services, there's really not much you can do. And so it had been, into about April of 2020 where the owner of the company had contacted me and had tried. And again, during this time, I was woke. I was left. I was, they, them, not shaving my armpits. Like, I was very much like, I remember recording a video in COVID time. Oh, also, that's something that started, is the message to start doing these videos and to be a more public person started in COVID time. And the first one that I ever did was identity and mixed match socks. And even in this moment, I have 2 different color socks on. And I just did like little videos every day. I just knew that I had to do it, and I did a little video every single day just talking about like what I was going through and my experiences and a little bit of like, how do we do this? And I just answered a call that was beyond me and started to do that. And I had eventually stopped doing that around the BLM protests and things. I really was very confused. Again, I had friends within that woke community that were like, I'm willing to die for this. We're going to protest. We're going into Boston. I was like, I'm not willing to die for this. Absolutely not. Something is really wrong. Something is really wrong. Everything that I had built crumbled in my hand in a day. Something is off. Something is off. Same thing that had happened to me the day that I woke up and Trump had been elected. I was a wild feminist singing sister suffragette after voting for Clinton. Like, it was just the most embarrassing experience. It's like, and I just woke up and I was like shaking my phone like an Etch-a-Sketch, being like, this isn't real. This isn't real. It was such a part of the blossoming of the awakening. And it's powerful fucking shit when this happens, dude. It is intense. It's intense to say everything that I have built has crumbled in my hand. Everything that I built was taken away from me. I don't have control over what I built. Excuse me? And so then in COVID time, I had the owner of the company call me and try to send me back to work. And he's like, we'll have to take you off of unemployment and send you back for like a few weeks or something just to try to like get payments coming through. And this was me and me and me and me and me making my own decisions for me at the time. And I said, no. I said, I'm not messing with my unemployment. I'm not messing with the only money that I have coming in. I'm not putting myself in an environment that I do not trust or understand in any capacity. That's a solid no for me. And I also recognized that something was very wrong in that moment when the owner of a physical therapy chiropractic company, like nationwide company, asked me what a referral was. And I was like, sir, I kind of feel like you should know what that is. I kind of feel like I'm not the only person in the country that is the only one that can handle this for you. Everything, if it felt wrong, I just didn't do it. I just stayed home. And so I started to heal in ways that were really messed up. I started to heal and have friends that were equally as mentally incapable of helping each other be the ones to hold space for me. So one of the things that my second ex-fiance, the verbal abuser ones, would say was that he was in theater and was in set design and built stages, but he did a lot of community theater as well. He had a great singing voice and again was like an actor through and through. And so he had said to me during our time period together that when I sang, it sounded like you were taking a bag of cats and you were throwing them against the wall. And so in COVID time, one of the things that I wanted to do was to heal that. I loved singing, and I'd have people tell me that you had a good voice, or, it was weird to me because even as a child, it didn't sound always good, but I could hit the notes. I was like, yeah, I can hit those big old notes, but I don't know. It's like, I had the physical capacity to do it, but I wasn't doing it. I had no idea. So I had hired a friend who was very like gone, very, very woke, very, very emasculated man, older, I want to say in his 60s or 70s or something, but was a singer and lived in a very musical space. And so what he helped me recognize is that just make noise, Sarah. Don't label it as good or bad. Just sing. Just sing. Just make the noise. And so I started to do little sing-alongs in COVID time. I did little videos, and I would be singing Elvis because I had a very comfortable low octave range, a big range. I'm working with my vocal coach again. I have been for a few years off and on, and I don't care where it goes. I just want to be able to, just belt it. And so I, at the time was doing that. At the time, my personal trainer and he was, sending out exercises, very, one-on-one. I wanted to be a contortionist. I wanted to do all these things. I had a friend that was a photographer. I was doing art nude photography. I ended up posting some of my art nude photography on my social media. And then I had friends that I thought were great friends being like, oh, so you're posting nudes now? Okay, cool. Oh, okay, that's what's going on. And this was inner child healing for me. It's interesting because I recorded all of this in the end of 2020. I recorded all of this, and I have not even gone back to watch it, but I'm going to have to because I'm going to post it and share it. And it's all the whys of why I did everything that I did. So I'm going to share that because it's the fact that I recorded it and have never shared it and never watched it it's beyond me. So I'm going to be sharing that. I'm very excited and very terrified to be sharing that, but it's my tale, so let's do it. And so, where are we? It's mid-COVID time, mid-quarantine. We're all making money. We're all at home. We're all expressing ourselves. We're not in financial fear. I am getting attention from inappropriate people left and right. No one's guiding me. I'm not guiding myself. I'm just taking the vase of the image that anyone had of me, and I purposefully picked it up and shattered it. Like glass in the milk, milk in the glass, the whole thing. It was just shattered. And I'm grateful for that. During this time, everyone's confused. My birth father would call me the new Sarah. Who's the new Sarah now? And I was so off put, and I was just so like, I have all the answers. Men are dumb, men are stupid, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's so, men are beautiful and wonderful and divine and strong. And it's just like having those mentalities is only because I had been hurt by emasculated men. Men are amazing, and I have respect for them. And I do not, how do I say? I'm aware as a divine feminine, having woken up post-woke and having done all these things, I'm atoning for what I have done. I'm atoning for the decisions that I have made. I'm unwinding all of the spells that I spoke when all I wanted was a high-powered position and a title. That's it. Because I was like, if I can provide for myself, then that's all I need. Then I can go to Marshall's at 2:00 on a Friday because we get out early on Fridays. Not anymore. This is my mission. And I do this because this happened to me. I made these decisions not just for me. They're for all of you. So I was doing all this inner child healing. I had created a persona, Sarah Hermes Veda. That was my Sarah Hermes Veda. And so Veda was my art nude. It was my expression of myself and my inner child healing. Hermes was my download, was the teacher, the guide, and Sarah was me. And so it made sense to me, but it did not make sense to anyone else. So it made sense to me, and so I know that I have Sarah's myself, Hermes is the teacher, and Veda is the version of me that does like inner child healing and inner child healing as well as art nude, but in a very, for me, it wasn't sexual because I was doing inner child healing. I've gone through sexualizations, I've gone through all this pain, and it was healing AF for me. But when you're posting art nude, the people that are watching do not care your intention. Do not care. They want to see it. The people that were around me, that were guiding me, bless them. Bless them. They probably cared about me. But at the same time, a lot of them were really just interested in seeing me naked. This is so vulnerable for me to be sharing. I'm just recognizing that, like, yeah. So my step family was very, very like, what's going on over there? I was not close to them in any capacity. We never got along, never ever. And that's fine. You know, you don't have to. And so, yeah, it was like my step family that eventually like told my father that I was posting nudes. And there is a website that you can use. Yeah. And so I wanted a safe space to share my artistry. To me, it was so healing. So I was like, oh my God, this is going to be healing for everybody. I'm going to heal the whole world. This is great. No. Just the men and the significant, actually females as well, that have been curious about you will sign up, will subscribe. Yeah. They do not carry your intention whatsoever. Not in the slightest. Yeah. So, started to put things on that website, and so easily you have people that are like, I will give you a lot of money to do more. I will give you so much money to do more. And so I was at a very dangerous intersection where a lot of this was like the fall of 2020, where the money that the government was giving us was starting to run out. I had asked my roommate to move out because it got to be a very toxic relationship. It was very like, again, I was queer and she like aromantic, asexual, and it amalgamized a more parental figure on top of me. And why would anybody be confused? Because I was calling myself queer when I wasn't queer. I was identifying as something that I wasn't. And people were latching on because I was so open. I had entities jump me. Like, it was a really, really scary time in my life. So all within a few months span, I am utilizing this platform and posting my artistry on it. But the people that were attracted to that were, you know, boyfriends of family members. And my step family was like, what's going on? What's happening? What's going on? And so, yeah, my stepsister told my father that I was using this website. My whole family is talking. They're so confused. And like, I'm just like really like stabby and being like, fuck you, I know exactly what I'm doing. We're really just need a fucking hug and a safe place to land and feel and cry and be. So I was about to sign a year lease on my own to an apartment, which actually is across the street from where I live. It's very, very interesting. It was an old funeral home that my landlords did not tell me was an old funeral home. So it, like, I had entities jump me. Yeah. Physically couldn't walk. I had to go to a shaman to get it removed. It was an odd situation. So I was about to sign the lease. My landlady called and said, we're actually going to sell. So we're going to go month to month. And as soon as you can move out, you can move out. Money from the government is starting to run out. I'm at, again, a financial fear place to be like, oh, but you could, if you post more of this, then you get money. And I was jumped by an entity. I had people from all over the world calling me saying, Sarah, I see demons around you, get out. Whatever you're doing, get out. So I had to leave the home that I was in, confused, didn't know where money was coming from, didn't know what I was going to be doing, didn't know what was happening. I was about to drive up to New Hampshire to stay with a friend of mine who had a room, but I was working in Massachusetts. It didn't make sense. And so I called my mother and I said, I need you to call my father and I need you to, I don't know why this happened. I know now, but in that moment, they had not spoken without a lawyer or a police officer present in a very long time. They'd been divorced. And I said, I need to stay at my father's house. I need you to call him. And it was, later in the evening, I want to say around like 7 or something. So like him and his wife had been drinking. And so my parents spoke for the first time in a very long time. They were recognizing that Sarah is an absolute triage. Whatever is going on, something needs to happen. And long and short of it, I was going to see the shaman to get the entity removed the next day. And so I'm sober as a judge, or actually sober as I've never been before. No cannabis flower, no drinking, nothing. And I'm shaking. I feel this entity on me. It was right here. The little cards that they give you at funerals, like one had fallen from the ceiling out of thin air. So I saw the entity that it was, docile, was just confused, needed to go back to spirit, just needed an avenue for it, didn't know why they were there. So no judgment on that entity. I was very, very open and needed attention. They were like, oh, beautiful. So the day before I went to see the shaman, I was driving to New Hampshire, had my parents talking, and my father was like, okay, just come sleep at the basement. Just come over. And so I needed parental love, I needed motherly love, I needed fatherly love. And so I asked my stepmother to recite the Hail Mary. I had my rosaries all around me. I was so scared, so scared. And that night, my stepmother, long and short of it, asked me to expose myself to her. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was so just like, that's what you do. And so for anyone who's ever been through any of those experiences, never get mad at yourself for having exposed yourself or having participated, because you're literally in this like, oh, a parental figure is asking me to do something, I'm obviously going to do it. And no, that's not okay. It was not okay. It was not okay. It was not okay. And so that happened. The next day I left, got the entity removed, started to stay with my mother at the time, completely, screwed up my relationships with both of my sisters and my mother, and then eventually found a friend at the time who let me stay with her. And all I remember, like everything's in a storage unit. It was a 10 by 10 storage unit. I got it in case I had to sleep there. And this friend, this old soul sister, was like, just, here you go. And all I remember is like falling into the daybed and just sleeping and healing. I was working 2 baby shifts at my old restaurant at the time. Like had to wear masks. I wanted to shave my head. I wanted to only speak Spanish. And I wanted to cut veggies in the back of the kitchen. And my old boss was like, no, Sarah, you're a great waitress. I need you to waitress. And that's literally all I could handle. And I listened to podcasts. I listened to spiritual counselors. I listened to alien channelers. I listened to so much beautiful healings and teachings. And it's the reason that I put so much out onto my public YouTube channel for free, because I don't know what I would have done without those influencers and that complimentary content. It saved my life. It saved my absolute life. I'm gonna take a sip of water. So, yeah. That was during the time where there was a mix-up at some point with my unemployment, and I had very little money coming in. Each shift that I worked at the restaurant was probably, I made less than $100, and I had 2 shifts a week, and I had $2.02 in my bank account for a few months. And the restaurant, you could go in and they had a salad bar, so I had food, and at that time I was able to acquire a motor vehicle, or during this time I was able to acquire a motor vehicle when I had my corporate job, and I was very grateful for that. His name is Thorn Oakenshield, my car. Rusty red Thorn Oakenshield, and hella high water, we have made it work. And the rebuild that I have gone through from 2020 till now, I wouldn't wish my personal 2021 or 2022 or even 2023, I wouldn't wish it on my enemies. I wouldn't wish the mental health crisis that I was going through, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I have built myself up. I have surrendered to God. Since that time, I think 2021, I got my IUD removed. I had had it put in before COVID time, and again, was they, them presenting as queer, even though I knew I was only attracted to men, and I only wanted to be with men, and men with a capital M, a man. A man. If you know, you know. So, and my guides are really smiling right now. I'm gonna ask if there's anything else. No. I think this will do for my Waking Up Post-Woke series. I think this will be the end of it. I feel good about what I've shared and have shown that actually in 2021, after the issues with my stepmother, after everything that had happened, and I got the IUD out, and I'm working on myself. I would dress more masculine, and I would wear queer labels because all I wanted was my father to love me. And all I wanted was for him to accept me and to not blame me for what had happened. And we are still working on our relationship in 2023, November of 2023. We're still working on it, and I'm very grateful. So what I find in this current reality that we're in, that when I look into the eyes of some of the people that are as, where I was, they, them, fae, genderqueer, I never use the term non-binary. I don't really understand that term. But for me, as you've seen, I identify as more of an alien or an angel or a very etheric galactic being. But there's no amount of transitioning of my body. I cannot go to a plastic surgeon and say, hey, turn me into a Barbie doll. Hey, do this. This is the body that I've been blessed to be in. This is the feminine body that I'm blessed to be in. And the more I grow out my hair, that's something that my first transcendent experience, they told me to grow out my hair. And I said, what does that have to do with anything? I'm obviously going to shave the sides of my head. But the more I grow out my hair, the more feminine, the more I become myself again. The more I'm reminded of who I really am. So we can choose actively not to participate in what our guides are telling us to do. It's very, very possible. But then you come back around, you're like, oh my God, That message that you gave me back in like 2017, in 2023, I'm actually doing it and everything's coming together beautifully. So if at any point in time, any authority figure had said, hey, something's wrong with you. You're actually a boy. You can take these meds, you can take this, and you'll be able to feel more like yourself. No, there's no amount of bodily manipulation, change, modification that you can do to solve this. It is radical self-acceptance and radical self-love. That's it. That is it. Because when you love yourself, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anyone calls you. It doesn't matter what anyone says to you. It doesn't matter. You love yourself and you are worthy. Yeah, the more I needed my father's attention, the more like a boy I was dressing. The more I needed a father figure, the queerer I was. There's no way to wrap this up. That's it. That's what I got. That's a lot of my story. And like I said, I will find the courage inside of me to watch and then share the recording of I think it was November, December 2020 of the more, because it was fresh. And so I'm going to have to go back and watch that and share that with you. So there's a song that's popping into my head right now, and it's a John Mayer song called Daughters. Fathers, be good to your daughters. Daughters will live like you do. Girls become lovers, turn into mothers. Mothers, be good to your daughters too. So that is how that's what I've come out of. So you're not alone, my dears. Thank you for being here. This is a very unexpectedly long tale, and I'm grateful to share it with you.